What's up, Psychedelic Investors? My name's James, and you're watching The Psychedelic Investor, your number one news source for psychedelic stocks. Today, we have an absolutely fantastic episode for you, and that is because we have not one, but two pieces of groundbreaking news. These pieces of news revolve around Numinus Wellness and Cybin, and I truly believe that if these companies end up being successful, and then in 5-10 years, when we're looking back on the steps to success, we're gonna look at this week as a major step that both companies took on their route to success. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, I actually have a really exciting announcement to make to all of you guys, and that is that the Psychedelic Investor has entered into a collaboration with Psychedelic Spotlight. Now, if you don't know who Psychedelic Spotlight is, first of all, what are you doing with your life? Go check out their website, psychedelicspotlight.com, right now. Psychedelic Spotlight is one of the leading news sources for insights and news into the psychedelic medicines world, and this is really exciting me because Psychedelic Spotlight is actually one of the companies, one of the news sources that I personally use a lot when I am doing my own personal due diligence, my own personal research. So when they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to collaborate with them, I couldn't say yes fast enough. We're collaborating on something called the Spotlight Roundup, which is a bi-weekly roundup of all the most important news stories to happen in the psychedelic medicines world over the past 2 weeks. In this about 8-minute video, I've got a 1 to 2 minute section, and it's honestly so humbling because I'm speaking among some of the most knowledgeable and intelligent people in the psychedelic medicines world, so the fact that I can be part of something so special is really just amazing to me. So, if you enjoyed this channel, The Psychedelic Investor, please head over to Psychedelic Spotlight, their YouTube channel, and check out their latest episode, which is just the Psychedelic Roundup. I'll put a link in the description to that video, and also we'll link the video at the end of this one, if we're able to link other YouTube channels. I think we are, but I guess we'll find out at the end of the video. So while you're there, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. These guys are new to doing videos, so they don't have too many subscribers yet, and I know that you all will love their content, so please go ahead and do that. And while you're there, comment down below on their video that you came from the Psychedelic Investor. I'm sure they will really appreciate it. So thank you guys. Without further ado, let's hop into the two big pieces of news that we have for you today. So we're just going to go ahead and hop right into it. The first piece of news that we have for you today comes from Numinus Wellness, which is of course NUMI on the TSXV and LKYSF on the OTC market. Now, the news that we have is that Numinus Wellness has acquired the Neurology Center of Toronto, and they plan to use this to create the Center for Psychedelic Neurology. So I guess the first question that most people have is, who is the Neurology Center for Toronto? Well, they are a fully operational neurology center with 13 doctors, 8 allied health staff, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, and more. And of course, now all of these scientists, all these doctors are going to be working for Numinus. But what did the Neurology Center of Toronto actually do? Well, they, quote, managed patients with common neurological conditions and associated chronic psychological disorders for which there are potential health benefits for psychedelic-assisted therapy. So some of these disorders that the Neurology Center of Toronto is working on treating include concussions, migraines, suicide headaches, neuropathic pain syndrome, and chronic epilepsy. And this is so important because while current treatments, they do help a lot of people, a vast amount of people that have these conditions feel that our current methods of treating them just don't help them whatsoever. So Numinus thinks that there is a really big potential here for psychedelic medicines like psilocybin, like MDMA, to help treat these disorders in people that where treatment just isn't working. So it can help treat some people with concussions, with suicide headaches, with chronic epilepsy. And that is the reason they went out and they acquired this company. Now, taking off my citizen of the world hat, where I'm talking about how amazing this is going to be for society, helping all these people with all these unmet needs, I'm going to instead put on my investor's hat, and we're going to look at some of the finances here. So the first question to ask is, how much money did Numinus pay to acquire the NCT, the Neurology Center of Toronto? And the answer to that is $500,000. $300,000 of which will be in cash money, and $200,000 of which will be given in Numinus shares. The first important thing to mention here is that this is not a 100% done deal just yet. There are still some I's to dot, some T's to cross, some hoops to get through, some red tape to demolish. Specifically, the number one piece of red tape they still need to do is they need to get this merger, this acquisition accepted, signed off on by the TSX Venture Exchange, but that probably is just a formality, and Numinus says that they expect this acquisition to be completed by the end of August this year. Looking at how much revenue the NCT, the Neurology Centre of Toronto, generates, well, in 2020, the company brought in around approximately $1 million. Now, this is really important because Numinus' strategy differs a little bit from a lot of the other companies in this field. They want to get revenue now. They want to get as much money as possible now so they don't have to be continuously diluting their stock like every other company in the field is doing, and like Numinus is doing at the moment right now too. But they are trying to get as much revenue as possible now, so this deal is definitely going to help them with that. Once this deal is 100% finalized, Numinus and NCT plan to, quote, expand the NCT into a comprehensive clinical neurology treatment center with a unique specialization in the application of psychedelics in the field of neurology. So they go even further than this. The Numinus goes, they grab their flag, they plant their flag in the ground because they say that they are, quote, going to establish the field of psychedelic neurology. Now, I'm not really going to comment on whether or not they are actually establishing the field of psychedelic neurology. I feel like I've read about other scientists that are working in labs that talk about how they're working on psychedelic neurology, but for the sake of time, let's just give it to them here. We will say congratulations, Numinus, for establishing the field of psychedelic neurology. And they are going to be working together, NCT, the Neurology Centre of Toronto, and Numinus, to create something that they call their first Centre of Excellence in Psychedelic Neurology. Now we're going to pause here for a second and allow me a 15-second rant. Guys, why are you naming it the Centre for Excellency? We already have Compass having Centres of Excellence. We don't need a second Centre for Excellence. Whatever, just name your stuff more unique stuff, please. It makes life easier for us people trying to follow all the different companies. Rant over, this doesn't matter. I'm just being pedantic. I'm just kind of nitpicking over words. Doesn't matter, but continuing on. The last important part of this acquisition is that the head of the NCT, the Neurology Centre of Toronto, Dr. Lewis, is going to be joining the board of Numinus. In fact, he's going to be the Vice President of Psychedelic Neurology Services once this acquisition goes through. Now, why is this important? Why is this acquisition, like I said in the intro, potentially an inflection point for Numinus? Well, let's listen to the words of Peyton Nyquist, who is the CEO and chairman of the board of Numinus. He says, "I continue to be humbled by the quality of people joining Numinus and acting with us on our ambition to help people heal and be well. The acquisition of NCT reflects our thoughtful expansion strategy to add clinics that offer revenue-generating services, accredited assets, and innovative leadership that maintains our position at the forefront of client care and psychedelic-assisted therapy." So he really hammers all three nails right on the head here. There are three important parts to this acquisition. First and foremost is it's going to help people heal. That is the main goal of all of these psychedelic medicines companies. There is so much unmet need across the world in suicide headaches, in epilepsy, etc. And if Numinus, in combination with NCT, can help heal these people, then that is a win for the world. Moving over to the company itself, whichever company ends up winning the psychedelic medicines arm race will be because of their scientists. It will be because of their researchers. And through this deal, Numinus gets access to a dozen plus researchers, a dozen plus doctors who are leaders in the field. So this kind of acqui-hire is going to be great for the company. And then third, of course, it's getting them revenue. Like we said earlier, these companies want to get revenue. Numinus wants to get revenue so that they don't have to be continuously diluting their stock in the future. So if we zoom out and look, say, 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, if Numinus has been successful and they are currently treating people with epilepsy, they're currently treating people with a range of different neurological conditions, then we will probably, when examining the history of Numinus, come back to this press release, come back to this period of time and highlight this acquisition as kind of being one of the turning points for the company moving forward. Moving on, next up, we are going to look at Cybin, who is, of course, ticker symbol CYBN on the NEO exchange, and CLXPF on the OTC markets. Now, the news that we have for you today is that Cybin has agreed to enter into an agreement with a company called Greenbrook to establish their mental health centers of excellence. I can't take this, guys. Too many centers of excellence. We should only have one. People, please name your names creatively. End of rant, getting back to the topic at hand. So, like I said, Cybin and Greenbrook, they are combining their resources to create their centers of excellence. They're going to start with one and expand them to multiple. So, what are these centers of excellence doing? Well, they're doing three things. First, they are going to further clinical research of the psychedelic compounds that Cybin already has. So, reminder, Cybin has CYB 001, 002, 003, 004, and they want to use these to treat addiction, depression, etc. So in these centers of excellence, they're just going to be doing more research on these compounds, as well as other compounds that are not as advanced as these four compounds. The second thing that they will be doing in these centers of excellence between Cybin and Greenbrook is developing a deeper understanding of the psychedelic therapeutic delivery methods. So this is important because we know of so many different ways to deliver, say, psilocybin. We can put it sublingually, under the tongue. We can have it intravenously. We can have it as a pill. We can have it as a patch. And all of these delivery methods, they have their pros and their cons. So we need to research all these different delivery methods to figure out which ones are the best. So that's what's going to be happening in these centers of excellence. The third thing is facilitating the recruitment of clinical trial participants for upcoming clinical trials. This is important because we talk about all the time how when examining psychedelic medicines companies, the most important thing to look at is how many clinical trials they have, how far are they advanced in their clinical trials. And what Cybin is doing here with Greenbrook is helping expand the scope and scale of these clinical trials. Now, I bet at this point you're probably saying something along the lines of like, okay, this is cool news and everything, but like, this doesn't seem as groundbreaking as you made it in the intro. And I will give you that, I agree, and that is because I did actually leave out one really important detail, and that is that Greenbrook currently, at this moment, across the United States, has 219 different mental health care clinics where they are already treating people with depression and other diseases. So, for instance, they've already treated 17,000 people that have major depressive disorder and other mental health care conditions. Now, in this first agreement that the two companies are doing, they don't really mention these 219 clinics, but if Cybin and Greenbrook can work together collaboratively, if they can work together well and they like working with each other, if Cybin's medicines, these CYB 001, 2, 3, 4, are effective, if they're proven to be effective in these clinical trials which the two companies are running, then the obvious next step for these two companies to participate in, for these two companies to collaborate in, is expanding this treatment regime to the 219 clinics that Greenbrook already has across the United States. And if they do this, then this would be a game changer for Cybin. One of the main topics that we've talked about on this show before is how once we get these psychedelic medicines through the clinical trial stages, we're going to have a bottleneck. We're going to have an issue. And that is, it's going to be really hard to scale this up, scaling it to hundreds and thousands of clinics, training thousands of therapists, making sure everybody knows the proper regimes. So what Cybin is doing here is getting a foot in the door of being able to treat people in these clinics, in these 219 clinics across the United States, so that once we start seeing that their molecules are effective, they can start training people that already exist in these clinics on how to run psychedelic-assisted therapy, and they will become, basically overnight, if they expand this agreement, one of the leading psychedelic medicines companies because they have access to these 219 different clinics, which would be more than Compass has, more than many other companies have, which would just be absolutely fantastic. But don't take it from me, take a listen to Doug Drysdale, who is the CEO of Cybin. He says, this opportunity to combine our preclinical and clinical knowledge of psychedelic therapeutics with Greenbrook's deep experience in patient care and delivery is unparalleled and serves as a major step towards establishing a national distribution network for future psychedelic therapies. So there you have it, from the horse's mouth. This could be really, really big. If we go ahead in the future, 5-10 years, and Cybin is killing it, they're treating depression, addiction, etc., they will probably be doing it through these Greenbrook mental health care clinics. And we can look back on this press release as one of the days where a fundamental shift happened. So this is really important. I hope you guys can grasp the importance of this. I hope I am saying it properly. I hope I'm not too jumbled in my speech today. So enough of me kind of rambling. What do you guys think about this? Let me know down in the comment section if you think this is as big of a deal as I am making it out to be, or do you think that I might be overstating it a little bit? I love to hear your guys' opinions, and while you're down there, make sure you like, sub, smash that notifications bell to make sure you never miss an episode going forward. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out Psychedelic Spotlight. Head over to the YouTube channel now. Check out the newest episode. It is fantastic. You will not regret doing it. And remember, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. I am just a retail investor that's doing his own DD and sharing his DD with the community. Nothing I say here is financial advice. And last but not least, just full disclosure, I don't own any positions in either Cybin or Numinus. However, I do hold some PSYK, which is the Horizon Psychedelic Medicines ETF, and that ETF holds both Numinus and Cybin. So I do have a little bit of exposure to both companies. That's all for today, guys. I love you all. I'll see you all soon. Peace.